Have you ever felt like you were the only one who saw the truth, while the rest of the world called it a delusion? In today's story, a 15-year-old girl is forced to live with the pregnant girlfriend of her recently deceased brother. Her family is shattered by grief, and the girl, the one now called the mother of his child, quickly takes over everything: his room, his belongings, his accounts, and worst of all, the absolute trust of her parents. But then, a hidden letter, a voice recording, a horrifying truth begins to surface. Her brother didn't take his own life, and the woman, the one cradling her fake baby bump, might just be a serial manipulator, a killer without a weapon. This isn't just a tragedy. It's a war for justice against someone who knows how to twist every mind in the room. And she, the teenage girl labeled paranoid, is the only one who can expose it all. Chapter 1. She walked into my house as if she had just lost her husband, but that man was my brother. I remember that fateful day vividly. Just a week before, my brother and I had been sprawled out on the sofa, arguing over whether we should watch an action movie or a comedy on New Year's Eve. 6 days later, I stood frozen in front of the funeral home, clutching the childhood blanket against my chest, eyes swollen from crying, still unable to believe that he was gone. They called it an accident, a sudden sewer slide. No goodbye, no warning signs. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody except for one person. But I wouldn't know that. Not until much, much later. Before I could even catch my breath, my mom, her face trying to hold on to composure, sat down at the dining table and said, "Sarah will be moving in with us." I froze. Sarah, my brother's ex-girlfriend, the one who was pregnant with my brother's child. She's 4 months along. My mom continued, "It's what Connor wanted. We should welcome her as family." I don't even remember how I nodded. Probably automatic. At that moment, everything felt hazy like fog, and then she walked into our house. 2 suitcases, one hand cradling her stomach, the other gripping the handle of her luggage, looking like the lead actress in some tragic Korean drama. I still remember the first time she looked at my mom, then rushed forward, sobbing and calling her mom. Even though, when Connor was alive, she had never once called her that. Now the tears fell like rain, her voice trembling. "I don't know what I would do without you." My mom embraced her like she had just found a long-lost daughter after 20 years. My dad quietly went to the kitchen, poured a cup of coffee, and handed her Connor's favorite mug. "Give this to Sarah," he said. "Connor always used this in the mornings." I swallowed hard, forcing something back down my throat. Something that felt a lot like anger. I really tried to treat her like family. I helped her move her luggage into my brother's old room, his blanket, his lingering scent, now hers. She didn't even ask. Just walked straight into that room like it was hers all along. That first night at dinner, she sat down in Connor's chair. No question, no hesitation, as if she had claimed his place in our family. I stared, hypnotized. My mom quickly leaned in and whispered, "Sweetheart, I know this is hard, but Sarah and the baby, they need us. We're all they have left." And what about me? I lost my brother. I had no one to share that pain with. But instead of giving me space to grieve, my whole family was busy scheduling ultrasounds, doctor's appointments, and baby name lists. Our house was completely overturned. No longer the home of Connor and me. Now it was the home of Mom, Dad, Sarah, and baby Connor Jr. A 15-year-old girl who had just lost her brother was pushed into the corner. I smiled stiffly at dinners. I clung desperately to the little fragments of memory I had left. I blasted "Here Comes the Sun" by the Beatles on Alexa all day because that was his favorite song. Every night I played iMessage games on his account, even though I knew I was just playing against myself. And I couldn't stop asking myself, why was everyone acting like Connor had never existed? Sarah told endless stories about him, but none of them sounded like the Connor I knew. The way she described him, something was off. Deeply off. I stayed quiet. I endured. But all of it, every strange detail was only the beginning of a nightmare I never could have imagined. And Inner Thoughts. Chapter 2. When your family treats your brother's killer like the center of the universe. I think the greatest pain in losing someone you love isn't just the loss itself. It's realizing that after they're gone, the people still around you treat you like you're the one with the problem just because you can't forget them. For the months that followed, I lived like a ghost in my own house. I'd come home from school to find Sarah sprawled on the couch watching TV using Connor's Netflix account. She'd be wearing one of his old hoodies, one hand resting on her now slightly bigger belly, saying things like, "He always wanted me to wear his clothes. It makes me feel closer to him." And then my parents would nod like they'd just received a holy prophecy from the Virgin Mary herself. What about me? I wasn't allowed to cry for too long. I wasn't supposed to talk about Connor too much. I wasn't even allowed to keep his things because you have to learn to let go. Let go. They had just transferred my entire college fund into a new account labeled Connor Jr. Fund for a baby who wasn't even born yet. Might not even be Connor's, and was definitely not me. When I asked why, my mom simply said, "That's Connor's future. It's what's left of him. What's left of Connor." Then what does that make me? I remember one time I went into his room to retrieve a bracelet he had made for me on my birthday. It was just a scrappy little thing tied with a string, but I'd kept it close to me ever since. When I opened the drawer, it was gone. Sarah smiled and said I thought it'd be best to donate the unnecessary stuff. Honestly, holding on to all of it is just keeping you haunted. My hands clenched, fingernails digging into skin. Not because of the bracelet, but because of the way she said it, like I was the crazy one, and she was the angel graciously freeing me from my past. And my family kept chanting the same line over and over again: "Sarah's pregnant. She needs rest. Don't upset her." I started wearing long sleeves, not because it was cold, but because no one really saw me anymore, even though I was right there. The house was quieter than ever, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that felt like if I dared mention Connor or bring up his death, the whole place would come crumbling down. So I went to the cemetery. I'd lie next to his grave the way we used to lie in our room, sharing headphones and listening to the Beatles. I told him everything because no one else would listen. Meanwhile, Sarah had stepped into the role of understanding big sister. She'd sit next to me and say things like, "I know you miss him. I do too. But he wouldn't want you living in the past." Connor never talked like that. He wasn't the preachy type. He just sat next to me, told stupid stories, cracked dumb jokes until I laughed again. I felt angry, but not the kind of angry that makes you scream, the kind that makes you feel cold, cold deep in your bones. And then I started to notice something. The stories Sarah told about Connor, they didn't add up. She'd say things I knew weren't true, like how Connor always wanted kids early because he loved family. Meanwhile, he once swore he wouldn't have kids until he was 30 because, dude, I still want to travel game and eat pizza until I drop. All I could do was stare at her, sitting in his chair belly growing, holding his mug telling these made-up stories. And my parents just sat there nodding and smiling like she was the Virgin Mary incarnate while I was Judas. That was the moment I realized I was no longer family in my own family. Chapter 3. My brother's birthday became a gender reveal party, and I was the villain. Connor's 18th birthday was coming up, and I had prepared everything to make that day truly special. Not a party, not a birthday cake, but a concert by Arctic Monkeys, his favorite band. We had promised to go together, and even though he wasn't here anymore, I still planned to keep that promise. I bought the tickets with the money I earned from my part-time job, chose spots close to the stage so I could scream along to the songs he used to love. But then, during breakfast, a week before the concert, Sarah said in a voice so sweet it hit like a velvet-wrapped punch, "I already booked the lake for the gender reveal party that day. It's also Connor's birthday." I thought he'd like the idea of welcoming a new life instead of mourning the past. I looked up from my cereal bowl. For a long moment, I couldn't say a word. Connor would want to hear Are You Mine sung by thousands of fans, not watch blue or pink balloons float into the sky, I muttered. Sarah gave a soft smile, the kind you give after successfully setting a trap. My parents looked at me like I had just suggested burning the house down. You want to skip your own niece or nephew's gender reveal just to go to a concert? My mom asked, eyes wide. That's your blood, your family, my dad added, voice tightening. Connor's legacy, I nearly shouted. Connor didn't even want kids at 18, he told me that. And then for the first time, I saw Sarah's real face. She snapped around, eyes cold, and said each word like a dagger. But Connor's not here to want anything anymore. Is he? The whole house fell silent. Not because they were shocked, but because they agreed. I stood up quietly. I went upstairs. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just climbed into bed, pulled the blanket over my head, and slept. We'll call it sleep. But it was more like a kind of mental shutdown, when you're so emotionally drained that your brain just powers off. When I woke up at 1 a.m., I got up to look for my old box, the one where I kept Connor's things. The box I hid away from Sarah's reach. It used to sit behind the bookshelf, tucked behind a pile of old notebooks. But it wasn't there. I tore through the shelves, flipped every pillow, opened every drawer, nothing. The box was gone, along with the concert tickets, along with the old photos, along with the ribbon bracelet he once made me using the bow from a box of cookies. The next morning, I brought it up at breakfast. Sarah smiled, that condescending smile, like a mom teaching her toddler a life lesson I donated them. I just thought, you were clinging too much. I only wanted to help you let go. My parents nodded in agreement, like Sarah was a certified therapist and I was a high-risk psych case. So I retreated to my room again, and I started to wonder, maybe I really was losing it. Maybe I'd spiraled out of control. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe I wasn't supposed to live in the past. But then that night, during my 47th mindless scroll through Connor's Facebook page, a weird nightly ritual I had, I came across an old post, a voice memo he once sent me, just a goofy little audio message, and suddenly I realized the most important thing. I didn't want to forget his voice. I couldn't let Sarah erase every last trace of Connor from my life. And from that moment on, I decided I would find the truth, even if it meant digging through everything, even if I had to step into the darkness that everyone else was trying so hard to hide. Chapter 4: The Letter Hidden in the Attic, and the truth my brother left behind before he died. I started looking for anything that might still hold some trace of Connor. I dug through his old phone, his iCloud, and finally his old laptop, which my mom had stored in the basement. It took me nearly an hour to guess the password. Then I typed in, "Here comes the sun, the Beatles," song he used to hum all the time. And to my surprise, it worked. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. A voice recording, a vlog, a message. But what I found was so much worse. The browser history was packed with searches: how to leave a relationship when your girlfriend is pregnant, being forced to marry because of a baby, signs your coffee has been drugged. I clicked on a folder labeled Work Docs and found dozens of screenshots. They were messages between Sarah and someone saved as Mike, work filled with heart emojis. Mike, no. His real name was Marcus. I'd heard Connor mention him before. A co-worker Sarah had always insisted was strictly professional, but Connor clearly didn't think so. He had tracked Sarah's GPS location, logged her lies about where she was, and even kept a journal of the times his coffee had tasted off. One journal entry made my blood run cold. Coffee tasted like meds again this morning. Sarah asked if I felt tired. She mentioned my life insurance for the third time this week. Not good. If anything happens, check the mailbox at the old spot. The old spot. My heart started pounding. If he meant what I thought, It was the attic, the one above the top floor where we used to hide when our parents fought, where we kept candy comic books and secrets we never wanted anyone to find. I waited until nearly 2 a.m., tiptoed upstairs with just my phone flashlight. The wooden floor creaked, but I knew every step like muscle memory. Behind a loose floorboard in the corner of the attic, it was still there. An envelope, with handwriting I knew by heart. If you're reading this, it means she did something. My hands trembled. I ripped the envelope open and pulled out a folded note. Connor wrote that the baby wasn't his, that he had overheard Sarah talking to Marcus on the phone, that he knew she was drugging his coffee, and that he had even recorded a part of it. I couldn't breathe. Everything inside me froze. My brother knew. He had tried to escape, and now he was dead. I clutched the letter so tightly my fingers turned white. Tears poured down my face in complete silence. Connor had tried to warn me, but no one believed him. And now I was trapped in the same nightmare. But I had the letter, I had the evidence, I had the truth. I shoved the letter beneath my mattress. I hadn't even caught my breath yet when I heard a door open. No knock, no warning. Sarah walked into my room, hand on her belly, eyes sweeping the space like a scanner. Couldn't sleep, she asked, her voice sugar sweet, fake as hell. Me neither. I keep dreaming about Connor. She sat down on my bed, as if this was her house. I tried not to shake, tried to stay calm. She continued, almost casually, Connor once told me, about that little hiding spot in the attic you two used as kids. So adorable. I smiled tight-lipped. Oh, we had lots of hiding spots. You know how kids are. Her eyes flashed something sharp, just for a second. Then she stood up. But before leaving, she turned back and said, "Oh, by the way, that loose board in your closet floor. Careful not to trip." I just noticed it. And then she left. Didn't even bother closing the door. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. My heart pounded like a drum, and only one question echoed in my head. How am I supposed to survive the game Sarah is playing? Chapter 5. Branded Insane. I found my first ally, and Sarah started playing dirty. The next morning, I couldn't focus on anything, not even pretending to be okay in front of my parents. When I stumbled into the kitchen still groggy, the whole family was already at the table. Sarah smiled like she'd just won a chess match. "I have good news," she said cheerfully. "Your parents agreed to start family therapy. The first session is today. Dr. Mills specializes in grief counseling. Super gentle." I blinked, stunned. Before I could respond, my mom jumped in like the whole thing had been planned without me. "I already called the principal and got you excused from school. This is more important." I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just nodded and drank my milk quietly like a good little puppet. But inside my brain was sprinting. I had to escape this trap. Had to keep Connor's truth alive. I texted Jade, my best friend, using a new burner phone she had secretly slipped to me the night before. Sarah had obviously started tracking my devices, and Jade knew it. Her reply made me sit straight up in bed. Emma, my sister, works at the hospital. She saw Sarah fill a prescription under Connor's name 2 days before he died. Full bottle of Ambien. Not even her prescription. You know what that drug does? Ambien. A sleeping pill. In high doses, it causes memory loss, disorientation, even respiratory failure if mixed with alcohol. I nearly ran out of the house right then, but I knew I had to fake it. I had to play Sarah's game, at least until I had enough proof. That therapy session was a horror show. Dr. Mills, who, as it turns out, was one of Sarah's old sorority sisters, looked at me like I was some rebellious child going through a phase. Every question she asked came preloaded with judgment like, "Do you think jealousy might be preventing you from accepting the baby? Has your grief led you to create narratives about Sarah and Sarah?" Oh, she was the star of her own tragic drama. She sobbed, wiped tears with lavender-scented tissues, and told them I was paranoid, that I believed she had killed my brother, that I refused to accept reality. I just sat there, fingers laced tightly under the table, digging my nails into my palms to keep from trembling. When we got home, I knew it wasn't over. And just as I predicted, hours later, Sarah created a group chat with both sides of my extended family. She sent a long message explaining that I was in a fragile mental state and that everyone should be gentle and not trigger me further. I watched message after message pop up like watching myself being rewritten into a fictional character, the crazy girl, the unstable little sister, the jealous teen who hated her future stepmom because she couldn't handle grief. Uncle Pete wrote, "She's really been different lately. Maybe she does need professional help." Aunt Catherine added, "She's just a hurting child. She needs love, but Sarah needs protection too." I threw my phone onto the bed. I felt like I was the villain in a story where I was the only one telling the truth. That night, I snuck out through my bedroom window for the first time in months. Jade and I met at our old playground around midnight. The air was cold, the ground damp, but I hadn't felt that free in ages. I handed her the photos I had taken of Connor's journal entries, his handwriting, his record of bruises, the fights with Sarah, the sleepless nights from suspicious coffee. One entry kept us silent for a long time. She threatened to fake bruises and blame me if I ever tried to leave. She even tested it once. And she's right. I have no proof. Who would believe me? Jade grabbed my hand and squeezed it tight. "We believe you, and we're going to make others believe too." For the first time in what felt like forever, something flickered in my chest, something that felt a little like hope. Chapter 6. I was trapped, watched, isolated, but I started to fight back. After the night I met Jade at the old playground, it felt like I had stepped right into the eye of a storm. On one hand, I had real leads, Connor's journal entries. On the other, Sarah was tightening her grip, and she knew how to do it without lifting a single finger. The next morning, as soon as I got to school, the loudspeaker called me to the principal's office. All the eyes turning toward me felt like I was being led to trial. Inside the office, Principal Johnson was already seated beside Ms. Rodriguez, the school counselor. Both of them stared at me with the same kind of pity people give to someone they've already decided is broken. "We received a call from your family," Ms. Rodriguez said softly, like she was singing a lullaby. "They're concerned about some recent behaviors, some conspiracy theories you've been sharing surrounding your brother's death." I opened my mouth to argue, but the principal cut in. "We'll begin conducting daily wellness checks with you. This isn't a punishment, just a support measure." I had officially been flagged as a student of concern. When I got home, I found Sarah in Connor's room, surrounded by his old journals I thought she didn't know about. I lunged for one of the notebooks, but she grabbed my wrist nails, digging deep into my skin. "These pages shouldn't be shown to your parents," Sarah whispered right next to my ear. "I'm just protecting this family." I tried to yank my hand away, but she gripped tighter, leaving purple marks. As I pulled back, pages fluttered to the ground, including one where Connor wrote about Sarah hitting him, and then forcing him to apologize afterward. That evening, Sarah created yet another family group chat. She sent a painfully long message. She's still not stable after the loss. Lately, she's been having dangerous delusions. Please, everyone, be gentle with her. Cue the flood of pity texts from aunts and uncles. And of course, Sarah's closing statement: "I've scheduled another family therapy session this week. Hopefully, intensive support will help." I knew I had to do something. Fight back, but quietly. I opened Connor's old laptop again and started following his digital breadcrumbs. In his email, I found GPS logs, screenshots of Sarah's calls with someone named Marcus. I backed everything up to 3 separate cloud accounts. Right then, a message popped up from a hidden number. Sarah just showed up at Marcus's place. She screamed at him to get the story straight. He's too scared to leave his room. Becca, Marcus's girlfriend. That night, I turned on my front-facing camera. I read aloud every word of Connor's letter and saved it as a video. I sent the recording to Jade with one message: "If anything happens to me, give this to the police. Don't trust anyone, not even my parents." I was caught in a twisted game, but this time I wasn't alone. I had Jade. I had the truth. And I had Connor, who had been brave enough to leave behind the key that would unlock it all. Chapter 7. I was being controlled to the point I couldn't breathe, but no one can suppress the truth forever. After the early days of subtle surveillance, Sarah no longer hid her desire to control my life. She made it official. She created a mandatory family schedule and shared it with everyone in the house through an app. Time to study, eat, sleep, go to therapy, even bathroom breaks. There was no gap left for me to breathe. This is to protect you, my dad said when I pushed back. If you ever need help, we'll know immediately. Sarah smiled sweetly like poisoned honey. And if you feel like you're being watched, that's just the stress talking. We love you, really. Over the weekend, Jade came to visit me, but Sarah blocked her right at the front door, wearing that same fake smile mask. Sorry, the doctor advised we avoid letting her interact with people who might reinforce her delusions. I watched from my bedroom window as Jade was turned away like some unwelcome guest. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with fury and worry. I nearly screamed. Then a message popped up from a private number: meet at the old playground. Midnight. Bring photos of Connor's journal. Jay. We met again, just like before. Quiet, cold, and careful. Jade brought a thick stack of papers and opened them for me to see. They were more of Connor's notes, proof that Sarah had faked bruises and threatened to falsely accuse him if he tried to leave. On one page he wrote, "She said she'd accuse me of abuse, make everyone believe I'm a monster. She's done this before to someone else." A photo was clipped to the page of Sarah showing bruises that were clearly self-inflicted. The angles, the depth of impact, it all lined up. Jade whispered, "This is blackmail, and if what Connor wrote is true, then Sarah isn't just a liar. She's dangerous." We copied everything to 3 hard drives and uploaded them to multiple cloud accounts. "We need backups for the backups," Jade said. "If she finds out you have this, she'll do anything to destroy you." And she was right. That Monday morning, Ms. Rodriguez from the counseling office called me in. Sarah sent us something. She said, voice soft, too soft, scary soft. It was a series of text messages, ones I never wrote. Messages saying I had threatened to kill her and the baby unless she left. I froze. "I didn't write any of that," I said, trying not to let my voice shake. Ms. Rodriguez gave me that same sad look, the one you give a person you've already decided is dangerous. "We're obligated to monitor the situation closely. All of the messages have been printed and added to your record." I went home straight to my closet. Checked my burner phone, it was untouched. But Sarah had already gotten ahead of me. She had forged the evidence, planted the lie before I even had the chance to reveal the truth. When I came downstairs, Sarah was making tea. Her eyes were ice. "Someone's starting to spiral," she said almost too calmly. "I'm worried about you, but I'm also worried about this baby." She placed her hand gently on her stomach, smiled faintly, and turned away. That's when it hit me. I was running out of time. She wouldn't stop. Sarah would do anything to erase the truth, and if no one believed me, then I would make the world see it for themselves. Connor had left me the answers. Now it was my turn to turn those answers into action. Apru, Chapter 8. When the truth was suffocated, I became the one to plant fear. I came home from the meeting with Ms. Rodriguez, feeling like there was a rope tightening around my neck. Those forged messages Sarah sent, they hung over me like a silent death sentence. And that's when I understood, if I kept playing the obedient daughter, if I kept enduring in silence, then my ending might be the same as Connor's. So I made a decision. If no one believed me, I'd create a storm so loud they couldn't ignore it. That night, I went to the public library. No cameras, no GPS tracking from my phone. I created an anonymous blog and called it Voice for Connor. I posted everything: photos of Connor's handwritten letter, excerpts from his journals describing how Sarah hit him, manipulated him with the pregnancy, and trapped him. Details of how she faked the pregnancy, gaslit my family, and stole my college fund. Even the line she once whispered to me, "Grief can make people see conspiracies." I didn't use any names. Didn't write as a grieving sister. I wrote like an outsider, a witness, documenting a pattern of abuse. It was reverse psychology at its finest. Then I sent the blog link to Jade, who shared it with Connor's old friend group, people Sarah used to befriend when Connor was alive. The responses came faster than I ever expected. Jake, a former co-worker of Connor, messaged me, "I still have footage from the parking lot cameras. Sarah came to the office crying, said Connor hit her. But when she left, she was laughing. Like actually laughing. She even took a selfie." Emma, a nurse at the hospital where Sarah picked up her prescriptions, messaged through Jade day of Connor's death she picked up a sleep medication prescribed under his name. And the wildest one, Mrs. Chen, the neighbor everyone knew as the sweet old lady who grew cucumbers, whispered to me while I was taking out the trash. That night, around 2 a.m., she borrowed my car, said it was urgent, returned it after 4. Mud all over the wheels. Piece by piece, the puzzle was forming itself. Then a name appeared, Tom Chen. Jade said, "Tom's my cousin's best friend. He had a girlfriend named Jennifer. She died too. Unexplained suicide. And she was pregnant before she disappeared." I asked Jennifer full name, Jennifer Walsh, but Tom said she had changed her name once before. I froze. Sarah Connor, Jennifer Walsh, the same person. I started mapping out the timeline, Connor's death, Tom's girlfriend's death, their eerie similarities, the bruises, the 2 a.m. phone calls, the emotional hostage taking, "I'm pregnant, please take care of me." It was the perfect predator's pattern. That night, while the house slept, I turned on the burner phone Jade gave me. A new message blinked on screen from Marcus. "Sarah's ex. The man I always suspected. I'll meet with you, but it has to be somewhere safe. She can't know I talked to you." My hands trembled. Marcus was ready to talk. Tomorrow I'd meet him. He could be a victim. He could be an accomplice. But I knew one thing for certain: I was getting closer to the rotten core of the twisted web Sarah had spun. And this time, I wasn't afraid anymore. Chapter 9. When manipulators start to fear you, the mask falls on its own. I met Marcus at a rundown diner 3 towns over. Dim lights, peeling booths, the kind of place no one notices. 2 people whispering in the corner. He showed up with his hoodie pulled low, eyes darting like someone being followed, and I sat across from him, armed with printed pages from Connor's journal, a USB full of images, and a head full of questions ready to explode. I asked him directly, "Did Sarah ever tell you?" "That Connor wasn't the father of the baby." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. She told me. The baby was mine." I went numb. She said Connor was the jackpot. Told me to keep quiet, that this was our way to get enough money to start over. Then she disappeared. Marcus's voice began to shake as he recalled Sarah calling him the night before Connor died. Crying, panicked. She said the plan was falling apart, that Connor was starting to suspect, and then she asked me, if something went wrong, would I still be willing to run away with her? I asked, "Do you have proof?" He hesitated, then opened his phone and showed me a series of messages. Sarah, real name Jennifer Walsh, had confessed to being pregnant by Marcus before meeting Connor. She had suggested changing names, spinning a love story, and planning everything around Connor's life insurance. By the time I got home, it was well past midnight. My parents were still awake. Dad was holding Connor's journal, specifically the page I had intentionally left on the kitchen table. He asked me, voice trembling, "Did you write this?" I shook my head. "No." "Connor did. It's in his own handwriting." Dad flipped to the part where Connor detailed being drugged by Sarah, how she kept bringing up the life insurance money in case something happened to him. Mom held the page with shaking hands. The next morning, before anyone could eat breakfast, Sarah made an announcement. "Your father and I will be having a small wedding in 2 weeks." I thought I misheard. But no. She said it with a beaming face and calculating eyes. Connor would have wanted me to have stability. For the baby, she added, stroking her stomach, the same stomach I now suspected might be completely empty. And then, a message from Jake, Connor's former co-worker, popped up. "Just sent your parents the parking lot footage. Shows Sarah leaving the house at 2 a.m. on the night Connor died. Comes back around 4. Exactly as Mrs. Chen had said. Exactly within the window, Connor died. That night, Mom knocked on my door, eyes red, in her hand a printed email. It was Connor's draft will sent to my parents a week before his death. In it, Connor wrote, "If anything happens to me, all my assets, car, laptop, insurance go to my sister. Sarah is not to receive anything." Dad collapsed into the chair like something inside him shattered. "Our son," he knew, he whispered. The very next day, he filed a motion to postpone the wedding. Sarah lost it. She slammed her teacup onto the floor, shards scattering. She pointed directly at me. "This little bitch is brainwashing everyone she's unstable. The baby in my belly, it's Connor's flesh and blood." I stood up. Calm, slow. Then, "Let's do a DNA test." Publicly. Silence. Sarah's face turned a shade of purple. She spun around and stormed off. That night, Jade sent me a new audio recording captured by Marcus. In it, Sarah was screaming at him. "They know everything. If I don't marry that old man, I have nothing left. I need the money. I need to disappear." I forwarded the recording to my parents. No explanation needed. I just looked at them, and finally, they looked back at me like they were really seeing me for the first time. Sarah knew she was losing, and I knew I was finally winning. But I also knew this. When a manipulator is cornered, that's when they become the most dangerous. Chapter 10. Truth doesn't need to scream. It reveals itself. 1 week after Marcus sent that damning audio recording, my entire family sat in silence around the dinner table. Dad placed his phone down. On it was a voice message from Sarah to Marcus, recorded at 2 a.m. "They know. I need to disappear. I just need some money." Connor was stupid and the little sister's clingy like a leech. Whatever, maybe the dad's still into me. Her voice ended in a soft, icy laugh. My mom burst into tears right there. That same day, my dad called a lawyer. Wedding canceled. Joint accounts frozen. Restraining order in progress. Sarah given 24 hours to leave the house. That night, I triple-checked all my backups, USBs, hard drives, cloud accounts. I couldn't risk losing even a single file. And then I saw the final folder. File name, forum, from Connor. Open it. It was a video. Connor sat in his room, eyes tired, shadows under them. His sleeve pulled up, bruises visible on his arm. He looked straight into the camera. "If you're watching this, I probably didn't make it. I'm not depressed. I'm not weak. But I'm trapped with someone everyone else thinks is a saint. I know you're smart. You'll figure it out. And even if you lose faith in the world, never lose faith in yourself." I broke down, but this time, not from pain, from knowing I'd done what Connor believed I could. The next morning, the entire extended family gathered. My grandma, my aunts and uncles, cousins, even Tom's mom, mother of the first victim. Sarah walked in, all smiles. "Wow, everyone's here. What's the occasion? Pre-wedding party?" No one responded. Dad pointed to an empty chair. Mom placed a sealed hospital envelope on the table, the paternity test. Connor was not the father. Sarah froze. I looked her in the eye for the first time without fear. "There's no baby." "Is there?" Then Tom's mom spoke. "You're Jennifer Walsh. You did the same thing to my son. Lied about being pregnant. Convinced him to buy life insurance. And then he committed suicide." One by one, the evidence was laid out. Jake footage of Sarah leaving the office at 2 a.m. Emma forged prescription records. Marcus audio confession. Me, Connor's handwritten letter. Tom's mom, the private investigator's report. Sarah stood voice, shaking, forcing a smile. "You're all making this up. I'm the victim here." My mom stared her down, then explained the pregnancy that disappeared overnight. Everyone looked at her stomach. Flat. The fake pregnancy belly. Gone. Police were called. As Sarah was cuffed, she turned and looked at me, her face twisted in rage, and hissed, "Connor was weak. You'll end up just like him." I answered calmly, "Maybe he was. But he left me the truth. And you." You left nothing but a pile of lies. Sarah was taken away. The wedding never happened. And my parents, after everything, finally turned to me. They didn't say anything. They just hugged me and held me for a long, long time. Weeks later, I finally made it to the place Connor always dreamed of going, the Lakeside Music Festival. Jade stood beside me. I screamed at the top of my lungs to Arctic Monkeys, his favorite band. In my jacket pocket, I carried the friendship bracelet Connor made me, the last piece that survived the storm of lies. I touched it, whispered, I told the world your truth, Connor. They won't forget you. And then I smiled. A real smile. For the first time in a long, long time, I'm not the crazy girl Sarah made me out to be. I'm the one who dared to trust my instincts when the whole world called them delusions. Connor's never coming back, but I brought my brother back from the shadow of a lie. My family isn't perfect, but they opened their eyes, they apologized, they stood on the side of the truth. And Sarah, she's now facing a long list of charges. And for the first time, there's no family left for her to manipulate. Some people don't kill with knives. They kill with teary eyes, a fake pregnancy belly, and a carefully crafted sob story. But in the end, the truth always finds a way to float to the surface. Thank you for coming with me on this journey. If you've ever felt manipulated, if you've ever been dismissed because you were too young to understand, remember this, your feelings are valid, and sometimes you are the only one who sees the full picture. Don't give up.